what we're talking about today, because we're going to be talking about Elijah again, being a light, and basically finishing strong, right? How many would agree Elijah's had some ups and downs? Some big ups and some big downs, but today we're going to see how he finishes strong. And one of the things we have to keep in mind, and right there at the top of your page, if you have it, it just says, when can I retire? A lot of people kind of start their life that way. How many have ever at their point just tried to figure out, when can I retire? It's kind of like the kid in the back seat. What are they saying the entire 5-hour trip? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? All they care about is what? When are we going to get there? Or how many have ever had a party and somebody shows up and the first question they ask is, so how long is this and when can I leave? How do you feel? Feel like they really want to be there? Feel like they're really interested? How about if you were ever hiring somebody? Anybody ever hired somebody, did an interview, and their first question is, so when can I leave at the end of the day? Is that 5 o'clock, or can I leave at 4:30? Or starts first day of work, and their first question is, so at what age, what's the earliest age I can retire from this place? When can I leave this place? What are you feeling from those people? Not a lot of commitment, right? Not a lot of enthusiasm for where they're at and what they're doing. And unfortunately, sometimes we as Christians can kind of be the same way. So God, when can I stop being a light? When can I stop going out and telling people about Jesus? When can I stop having to do all this stuff like going to church and studying and telling people about Jesus and doing the right thing? When can I just stop doing that? When can I retire? And what is the answer? Never. You might as well ask, Lord, when can I stop breathing? Anybody ever ask that question? When can I just stop breathing? No, because what happens when you stop breathing? You die. So nobody ever asked that question. But this is something, when we are alive, that's what Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount, his first big sermon, what was his first point he wanted to make to people? After the blessed, 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 and then he said what? You are the light of the world. You are the salt. This is who you are. Don't put it under a bushel. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to extinguish it and say, I'm not a light anymore. We are always a light. And what is our job? Let our light so shine that people will see our good works and glorify our Father which is in heaven. When does that job end? Never. And this morning, I don't know when it is. This morning, we're going to look at finishing the race, finishing strong. And we're going to do a comparison. One is going to be King Ahab. And believe it or not, King Ahab is going to be the bad example of finishing poorly. I know that didn't shock anybody. So, I mean, what's shocking, though, to me is, you remember last week, King Ahab actually repented, actually felt bad about what he did in the situation with Naboth, or more what his wife did, right? And actually repented, and God actually showed grace to him, and actually after that had 3 years of prosperity, 3 years of peace, 3 years of blessings of God. Ahab had a chance to finish strong, didn't he? But unfortunately, he did not. And there's a reason for that, and we need to be aware of these reasons. Make sure we're not doing these things too, so we finish the race poorly. And then we're going to look at Elijah, and as he finishes his race, what does he do to finish strong? Okay? So that's what we're looking at today. So let's all go to 1 Kings chapter 22. 1 Kings chapter 22, and we're going to start in verse 1. And we're going to see here again, right after chapter 21, verse 29, where God shows his grace to Ahab and tells him, hey, you're not going to see the destruction of your family and everything in your lifetime. It's going to come after you and your son's life. But here, I'm going to bless you because you have repented, even as bad as he was, right? Chapter 22, verse 1. And they continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. And that was a big deal. In fact, I don't know they've gone 3 years without war recently. I don't think so. So, verse 2. And it came to pass in the 3rd year of peace that Jehoshaphat, oh, what a great name. Old jumping Jehoshaphat. I don't know where to get that name. So old Jehoshaphat in the king of Judah came down to the king of Israel. Now, Jehoshaphat was a good king. And that's one thing we need to understand. While all this was going on with Omri, who was horrible, and then Ahab, who was even horribler, with Queen Jezebel, during all that time, Judah's had good kings, faithful kings. They've been doing really well. But they have a relationship with Israel, and King Jehoshaphat comes down to see King Ahab. Verse 3. And the king of Israel said unto his servants, Know you that Ramoth in Gilead is ours? That was a land that Israel owned, that God had given to Israel. And we be still and take it not out of the hand of King Syria. So this is very common. When there's peace for a while, what do kings get? Itchy. It's like, we haven't had a good war in a while. We haven't had a good fight for a while. Is there something we can go and take back that's ours? And that's basically what happened. Verse 4, And he said unto Jehoshaphat, Wilt thou go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? And Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as thou art, my people is thy people, my horses as thy horses. Of course. But Jehoshaphat is a good king. So what does he want to do first? What would you want to do first before you went into battle, especially with King Ahab? Who would you want to check with? Check with God, right. And Jehoshaphat again, good king. Verse 5, And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Israel, Inquire, I pray thee, at the word of the Lord today. Let's ask and see if we should go. And if so, I'm with you. Now, we get a little insight into King Ahab and why he finished so poorly. Verse 6, Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said unto them, Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, Go up, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. Now I want you to notice something. King Ahab is not asking the prophets of Baal. He's asking prophets of God. Quote, unquote. They are the prophets of God, but these happen to be false prophets. They are yes men. And I'm telling you right now, if you want to finish poorly, listen to people who will tell you what you want to hear rather than what you need to hear. And what basically King Ahab has done, especially over the last 3 years, is he has said, I will follow God. I will seek God. But I'm only going to listen to prophets of God who will tell me what I want to hear. And he found 400 of them willing to do that. And I bet you look today, there's at least 400 pastors in churches who will tell you exactly what you want to hear. At least that many. Are there always going to be false prophets among us? Hey, Daniel, how you doing? Good. It will always be there? Yes. In fact, we saw that on Wednesday night, didn't we? Peter said that. There have always been false prophets. There will be false prophets. There will always be false prophets. Always people that will tell you what you want to hear. And he surrounded himself with prophets of God who told him what he wanted to hear. And their answer was, you want to go up? Go on up. God will be with you. Verse 7. And Jehoshaphat, being a man of God, knew something was wrong. Because he said, Is there not here a prophet of the Lord besides, that we might inquire of him? When you are listening to God and you are following God, you get that feeling, don't you? You know that what was said is wrong. The Holy Spirit will kind of let you know. It's like, there's something wrong here. And Jehoshaphat had that. He had that relationship with God. And God let him know. And King Ahab did know somebody who wasn't there for some reason. Verse 8. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, There is one man, Micaiah, not Elijah, Micaiah, the son of Imlah, by whom we may inquire of the Lord, but I hate him. I just love Ahab. Ahab is just so honest with himself. He speaks for the Lord, and I hate him. I hate him. Every time I ask him, he doesn't tell me what I want to hear. He tells me the truth, and I hate that. Of course he does. For he doth not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. And Jehoshaphat said, Let not the king say so. Let's get that guy. Let's get him in here. And the fact of the matter, if you want to finish poorly, listening to false prophets, those who just want to tell you what you want to hear, is a bad idea. And again, in this day and age, how easy is it to find people who will just tell you only the things you want to hear and only listen to people who will tell you what you want to hear? And how easy is it for us to just say to ourselves, well, if they say it and I agree with it, it must be truth. Is that how truth is determined, by the way? That they said it and I agree with it and therefore it's the truth? No. That's not how truth is determined, is it? Truth is determined by the fact that it is what? Truth. It's actually a fact. It is actually a matter. And this is a problem, isn't it? And King Ahab basically had been listening to just false prophets. In fact, when Micaiah comes, let's jump down to verse 15. Now, there's a little interchange there. He doesn't really want to come because he knows what he's going to say. But finally in verse 15. So Micaiah came to the king, and the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? And he said to him, go and prosper, for the Lord shall deliver it into the hand of the king. Now, evidently, he said that in such a way that everybody in the room know he was not being serious. I don't know how he said it. He could have said, sure, go and prosper. Go ahead. Lord shall deliver it into hands. Because he knew that's what he wanted to hear. But what did Ahab know in his heart? See, Ahab knew the truth. Was he supposed to go? No. This is not what he wanted, and he knew the word of the Lord already before he even asked. And we're the same way, can't we be? We know what the truth is. We know what we should be doing. We know the way that we should be going. But then we ask, and he says that, and we're like, no, that can't be right. Right? Because what was said next? Verse 16, and the king said unto him, how many times shall I adjure thee that thou tell me nothing but that which is true in the name of the Lord? He knew that was not true. And yet what? This is how you finish poorly, is just keep ignoring the truth. Right? In fact, look what he did. He despises the truth. He says, I don't really want to hear the truth. And verse 17, and he said, I saw all Israel scattered upon the hills as sheep that have not a shepherd. And the Lord said, these have no master. Let them return every man to his house in peace. In other words, if you go out to battle, you, king, will die, and the people will have no king. And what was his response to that? Oh, thank you for saving my life. We will not go now. No. Verse 18. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, did I not tell thee that he would prophesy no good concerning me, but evil? Didn't I tell you? Yes, because why? They're not supposed to what? Go. He's going to die. And he's basically taken the truth here and he's despising the truth. I will not listen to the truth. I will not consider the truth. I don't care about the truth. It does not fit with my mindset. It does not fit with my agenda. It does not fit with what I want to be true. Therefore, I just am going to ignore it. Is that a good way to finish strong? That's a terrible way to finish at all. Anything. In fact, look at verse 26. Jump down to verse 26. And the king of Israel said, take Micaiah and carry him back unto Amon, the governor of the city, and to Joash the king's son, and say, thus saith the king, put this fellow in the prison, and feed him with bread of affliction and with water of affliction until I come in peace. This is the proverbial feed him bread and water, right? Give him bread and water of affliction until I get back. So what's his answer? Basically, the bottom line, he's going to shun the truth teller. I'm not going to listen to you. I'm going to put you away someplace where you can't harm anybody else with your truth. Isn't that what we do? I don't want to hear it anymore. And we shut it off. Why do people stop reading their Bible? Why do people stop going to church? Why do people stop listening to the truth? Because they don't want to hear it anymore, right? They know what it is. They just don't want to hear it anymore. And they'll sit there and I will despise the truth. I don't want to hear the truth. And in fact, if you try to tell me the truth, you're out of here. So I don't want to hear it. Does that change the truth, by the way? No, it doesn't change the truth. In fact, look what verse 28 says. And Micaiah said, if thou return at all in peace, the Lord hath not spoken by me. And he said, hearken, O people, every one of you. If he returns, I'm a liar. But what does Micaiah know? He's not returning. In fact, it had already been prophesied the dogs are going to lick up his blood where Naboth was killed. This is going to happen, isn't it? Is he speaking the truth? Should we be willing to stand up for the truth? Will the truth happen? Yes, because it is what? The truth. They shun the truth teller. They despise the truth. And then, what do? Verse 29. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went up to Ramoth Gilead. What's Jehoshaphat doing? He knows the truth now, but both of them, what? They ignore the truth. They go about their business and they go do exactly what they wanted to, just ignoring the fact that the truth is there. So, how do you think this is going to end? Now, I don't know about this Jehoshaphat guy. Good man of God, but this is not a wise move, is it? In fact, let's see how the battle goes. Verse 30. And the king of Israel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and enter into the battle, but put thou on thy robes. And the king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. He said, so Jehoshaphat, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to dress up like a little footman, and I'm going to go out there just like a regular soldier out there. And I want you to wear the kingly robes, your usual robes, and go out there. Evidently, the king of Syria had decided we need to kill the king of Israel for breaking this peace. In fact, his command was the people was to ignore everybody except the king and kill the king. Right? So if you're Jehoshaphat, what just happened to you? Who's the one out there with the kingly robes on? Who's the only one out there with the kingly robes on? It's Jehoshaphat. So I want you to know something about Ahab here. Does he believe the truth? He actually does. He actually believes Micaiah. He believes that he should not be going. He believes that he's going to die out there. In fact, he's trying to do everything he can to make sure the truth doesn't happen. But can you stop the truth? Evidently not. Because what happened? Verse 31, and the king of Syria commanded his 32 captains that they had ruled over his chariot, saying, fight neither the small nor great, save only with the king of Israel. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariot saw Jehoshaphat, and they said, surely it is the king of Israel, and they turned aside to fight against him, and Jehoshaphat cried out, help! Not the greatest warrior in the world. Okay, give him a break. He's got everybody coming after him. Verse 33, and it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Israel, that they turned back from pursuing him. So you get this picture of them all just chasing this guy across the hills, and him screaming and yelling, and they said, wait, that's not him. So they turned back. Verse 34, by chance, right? No. By God's hand, verse 34. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture, just basically shot it randomly in the air, and smote the king of Israel between the joints of the harness. Wherefore he said unto the driver's chariot, turn thine hand and carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. And the battle increased that day, and the king was stayed up in his chariot against the Syrians, and died at evening. And the blood ran out of the wound into the midst of the chariot. And they took the chariot back to town, and exactly at the place that Naboth was killed, they washed out the chariot, and the dogs came and licked up his blood. Just as who said. So what was the truth? Does it matter? Does the truth matter? Truth absolutely matters. If you want to finish strong, if you want to run a good race, frankly, from the beginning to the end, what must you do? You must Embrace the truth, even if you don't want to hear it, even if it's not what you want to do, even if it's difficult, even if it's hard. You have to sit there and say, I accept it as truth, and I will follow that truth, and I will live that truth my entire life. Then we do well. But if we don't, if we listen to the false prophets, if we surround ourselves with people that tell us just what we want to hear, if we despise the truth and in fact shun anybody who will tell us the truth and then ignore the truth and do whatever we want to do, how does it end? Poorly, right? As God intended. He wants to bless us so much, doesn't he? But to do that, we have to follow the what? Truth. Let's look at another man. Let's look at somebody who finished strong. Let's go to 2 Kings chapter 1. All the way over to 2 Kings. It's right, actually just the next page. 1 Kings 22 is the last one. So let's look at Elijah now as an example of one who finished strong. Again, a man who had ups and downs, right? Had some difficult times, even had that time where he just basically said, kill me, Lord. His faith was so low, so depressed from all that he'd been through. He didn't want to be a light anymore, right? What did God say? No, you're going to be a light, but I've got this thing under control. I will be with you. Came to him, bucked him up, and now he's been going on, and he's been going for some time now. He's the one that came to Ahab, told him he would be punished for what he did to Naboth, and saw God's mercy on him, right? Saw all that. He's been now 3 years, basically just being a light, but not the center of attention, right? Micaiah is the one that went. So how many would say Elijah deserves a little retirement here? But that's not the way Elijah works. Elijah, even though he is advanced in age, even though you could say he's already run his race, he already did everything he could possibly have done, God still had a plan for him. And does God still have a plan for you, by the way? Yes, he does. Should you be willing to do whatever he calls you to do, wherever he calls you to do it? Absolutely. And that's what we see in Elijah. Let's go to chapter 1, verse 1. Then Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. Now, when Ahab died, his son Ahaziah took over. And as we learned back in 1 King, Ahaziah was just as stupid and evil and ignorant as his dad. And that's not a good thing, is it? And he didn't learn a thing from his dad and his mom, Jezebel. Learned nothing. In fact, he brought back all the Baal stuff. He liked that stuff. So he brought all the Baal prophets and everybody back into town. Everything was running like he wanted it to. And Moab rebelled against Israel, and Ahaziah fell down through a lattice in his upper chamber that was in Samaria and was sick. That is the weirdest statement, isn't it? The king fell down through. How many want to just bet he was drunk? Just a good guess. I'm just assuming. He fell down and injured himself. And now he's laying down sick in bed. So what does he decide to do? And he sent messengers and said unto them, go inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, whether I shall recover of this disease. Did he learn a thing from his parents? Not a thing. In fact, when Ahab was dead, Jezebel kind of took over. So really, Ahaziah is just kind of working with her. So, and she brings back all the nonsense again. So he says, go ask Baal-zebub. Not a good idea. But here comes Elijah. Elijah has another mission. Verse 3. But the angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and say unto them, is it not because there is not a God in Israel that you go to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Is there not a real God here? You've got a real God that's shown himself in so many ways. Shouldn't you go to him instead of going to that brass piece over there? This is ridiculous. Verse 4, now therefore saith the Lord, thou shalt not come down from that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And Elijah departed. So he faithfully what? He faithfully told the truth. If God said go and say, what did he do? He went and said. Doesn't matter who he said it to. In fact, is Ahaziah going to be mad again? Think Ahaziah may try to kill him? The answer is yes. Had he been through this before? In fact, the last time he did something like that and somebody said they were going to kill him, he ran away. He ran away and got all depressed and scared and everything like that. This time, though, he's not backing down, is he? He's actually learned. He's actually grown. His faith is stronger as he has gone along. And he goes and tells them that message. Now, all those prophets of Baal, they come to King Ahaziah, or the messengers come back and say, you know, we met this guy, and he told us that you're not getting out of this bed. And he said to the messengers, what do you mean? Who was this guy? And they said, Elijah. He goes, oh, Elijah, that guy. He hates Elijah. He says, oh, that Elijah. He's telling me again. He's doing this to me and my family again. So Ahaziah sends 50 men to go and kill Elijah. How do you think that's going to turn out? Verse 9. Then the king sent unto him a captain of 50 with 50, and he went up to him, and behold, he sat on the top of a hill. He's not hiding this time. He's not off in some foreign land. He's not running away from this. Where is he? He's sitting on a hill saying, if you want to talk, come talk. And the 50 men come to him. And they said to him, thou man of God, the king has said, come down. Come here. We want to, quote unquote, talk to you. Do you think Ahaziah really wants to talk to him? No. Verse 10, and Elijah answered and said to the captain of 50, if I be a man of God, then let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And there came down fire from heaven and consumed him and his 50. By the way, do you see a pattern here? When's the last time he called fire down from heaven? It was to consume a sacrifice, right? Is he a man of God? Is there proof that he's a man of God? Has he just proved it again that he's a man of God? He's now going to stand strong in the Lord, right? Can we stand strong even as our body kind of starts falling apart? Even as we physically get weaker, our mind gets weaker? Can we even stand then stronger in the Lord, knowing he is with us? Because no matter what, can our faith get stronger? Can our power in the Lord get stronger? Because they have nothing to do with the physical part, do they? Or the age part, or anything like that. And here we have Elijah, who's been through so much. Now he is standing in the power of the Lord. And fire comes down from heaven. That does not stop Ahaziah. Verse 11. Also again, Ahaziah, sent unto him another captain of 50 with his 50. And he answered and said unto him, O man of God, thus saith the king of, come down quickly. Get down here now, says the king. What do you think is going to happen? Got a little fire left? Verse 12. And Elijah answered and said unto them, if I be a man of God, let fire come down from heaven and consume thee and thy 50. And fire of God came down from heaven and consumed him and his 50. Is that going to stop Ahaziah? What does he care? Is he one of the 50? That's one of the things you learn about rulers, right? Well, just send another 50, right? So he sends another captain of his 50. Verse 13. And Ahaziah sent again a captain of the third 50 with his 50. And the third captain of 50 went up and came and fell on his knees before Elijah and besought him and said unto him, O man of God, I pray thee, let my life and the life of these 50 thy servants be precious in thy sight. This guy learned, right? I'm not going to say get down here. I'm going to say please spare us, because you are a man of God. Does the world notice when we stand in the power of the Lord? By the way, the world also knows when we stand in the power of our own intelligence, when we stand in the power of our own might, stand in the power of our own wisdom. They recognize it because they know they can take that. They can destroy that. They can beat that. But when we stand in the might and wisdom and truth of the Lord, they can't beat that, can they? Oh, they can try covering it up with falsehoods. They can try ignoring it. They could even try to get rid of us. But can they destroy the truth? Can they destroy reality? No, they can't. So we need to stand strong in the Lord, in the truth, as Elijah did. Verse 14, behold, there came down fire from heaven and burned up the two captains of the former 50s with their 50s. Therefore let my life now be precious in thy sight. And the angel of the Lord said unto Elijah, go down with him. Be not afraid of him. And he arose and went down with him unto the king. And he said unto him, Thus saith the Lord, For as much as thou hast sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, is it not because there is no God in Israel to inquire of this word? Therefore thou shalt not come down off that bed on which thou art gone up, but shalt surely die. And guess what happened to King Ahaziah? He never got out of that bed, and he what? He died. But that's not the end of Elijah. Elijah has one more task he needs to do. God says, I need you to go over to this place, and I'm going to pick you up. Literally. So he goes and he gets Elisha. Remember, Elisha's the one that had been anointed to basically be the follow-up to Elijah. And he gets Elisha and says, we need to go to this place. He tries twice to tell Elisha, just stay here. But Elisha's like, no, I'm going with you. And how strong had Elijah come? How strong is he at the end of his race? Look at verse 7 of chapter 2. On your paper, I know it says chapter 1, but it should say chapter 2, verses 7 through 11. And whenever I say 7-11, I want a Slurpee. How about you? Verse 7 of 2 Kings chapter 2. And 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood to view afar off, and they stood by Jordan. So they have the Jordan River before them, and God says, you need to get on the other side of Jordan. So what does Elijah do? Verse 8, and Elijah took his mantle, basically his outer coat, and wrapped it together and smote the waters, and they were divided hither and thither, so that they too went over on dry ground. Last time this place was split was when they were going into the land with the ark. Once again, Elijah just takes his coat, slaps the water, and it divides, and he and Elisha go to the other side. The 50 don't follow, but the two go to the other side. Verse 9, it came to pass, when they were gone over, that Elijah said unto Elisha, ask what I shall do for thee, before I be taken away from thee. And Elisha said, I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me. Now, we're going to start looking at Elisha as a light next week, and that's very important. Elisha had a good perspective on things. What do we all need more than anything if we're going to be a bright light in this world? We need faith, right? We need to trust the Lord, trust His truth, trust His power, trust His direction. We need to trust Him. And Elisha saw this, says, I need a double portion of whatever faith you've got. I need to be able to trust God like you trust God. Now again, Elijah had ups and downs, and we'll all have ups and downs, won't we? But what did it result? At the end of Elijah's race, how strong was his faith? How strong was his trust in the Lord? How strong was his trust that God is truth and right? It was so strong. And Elisha saw that. He said, I want a double portion. I love what Elijah says, verse 10. And Elijah said, thou hast asked a hard thing. Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so unto thee. But if not, it shall not be. I love Elijah. Because again, who's Elijah trusting to decide whether Elisha should have a double portion of faith? You're not saying, I can give that away because, I'm a man of faith. No. Who decides these things? God does. And if God lets you see me go, then He's granted your desire. But if not, you don't have it, but go forth anyways, right? And then we all know what happened. Swing low, sweet chariots, right? What happened? How many think Elijah was taken away on a fiery chariot? Nope. There's actually been a lot of misconceptions on that. What actually happened? Verse 11, and it came to pass as they still went on and talked, that behold, there appeared a chariot of fire and horses of fire, and parted them both asunder, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind. So the chariot said, Elisha, you're going no further. You stay here. But did he see him? Yeah, he saw him taken up by a whirlwind, and off he went. Where did he go? Oz? Good guess. So he's one of the two people that have been taken to heaven without dying. So off he went. Will we see him again? Is this race actually even over? I don't know. A lot of speculation on that. In fact, he does show up later on with Jesus. But he finishes what? He finishes strong in his faith. His faith is not in himself. This is the key. This is a key. You want to finish strong, make sure your faith is not in you. As we gain experience, as we go along day by day and we see God working in our life, sometimes we start thinking it's who? Us. Elijah, as he's standing here at the end of his life, the one thing he knows for certain is it ain't him. His faith is in whom? It is in God. God's decisions, God's power, God's way, God's truth, God's wisdom. It is him, not Elijah. And to finish strong, we need to have that same kind of faith, don't we? We need to stay strong in the Lord. We need to have strong faith in the Lord. We need to faithfully tell people the truth of the Lord, right? And if we do that, will we finish strong? We can be like Paul, who said, I have completed my course. I have kept the faith. Faith in who? Faith in God. Faith in his way. And that's the way we can enter eternity strong. Enter well. So we have a choice here, don't we? Which one are you going to be? By the way, did both finish? Both finished. But one finished poorly, choosing not to focus on the truth, but instead just focus on what he wanted. And the other one focused on the one who is truth. Which one are we going to be? Now, we're talking about finishing here. Some of you may say, well, I'm still at the beginning of my race, or I'm still in the middle of my race. Do we know? We don't know where the finish line is, do we? So no matter what, we should make this a part of our life anyway, shouldn't we? To make sure we are surrounding ourselves with truth, and those who tell the truth, and following the truth, and obeying the truth, and then going and in the power of the Lord and faith in God, going and telling people the truth. That's how you run a good race. That's how you're a light in a dark world. Amen?